Welcome to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. Today, CIBC Wood Gundy's Ross Clark and how the markets reacted to the election of Donald Trump. Trends Journal publisher Gerald Celente, who predicted Trump's victory, gives us his vision of a Trump government. And Mackey Research's Peyton Nyquist runs down the Canadian equity markets. And stay tuned. Right after This Week in Money, we'll have Company Showcase with Larry Reaugh. We'll talk to Ross Clark right after this.
I'm Larry Reaugh, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, AMY, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
Welcome to This Week in Money, the source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
We're chatting with Ross Clark. He's an investment advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy in Vancouver. Welcome back to This Week in Money, Ross.
Nice to be with you, Jim.
Did the markets react the way you expected after the Donald Trump election?
Well, to be honest, the election went opposite to what I thought it would go, but the market reaction is typically, it's what you expect when you have an event that is broadcast well in advance, whether it was this or Brexit or any other specific news item. You know that if the markets come under pressure, that central bankers, the plunge protection team, they will be there to support things, at least in the interim. And it's only really when you get a black swan event that catches the markets off guard that you really end up with a waterfall. And generally that's at the point where you've already been declining, like we had in with 9/11. The market had already been under pressure. But in this case, we'd been flirting with the highs through the summer, had a nice sell-off into a week ago, and we mentioned how the work that I do on this technicals, we had some good capitulation readings on the Thursday, Friday, leading up to the election. And then on that night, on Tuesday night, we had technically what we call a spring system, which is where you've got an important support. You've rallied away from it for a few days. We had rallied up to the 20 and 50-day averages on the S&P and the Russell. We went down overnight, took those out, and then in one fell swoop, we reversed and took out not only the previous day's close, but also the previous day's high. So that spring effect is what Wyckoff likes to look at significant lows, and it just fits nicely with the capitulation that we saw. And so coming off this bottom, what we need to look at going forward will be the lows of the Thursday, Friday that preceded the final lows. So that's what we really want to keep an eye on. And the areas that we thought would be do well, which would be banks and infrastructure, have had a really good week this week. The ones that were most oversold being the biotechs, that biotech index is up 20% on the week. So the big reversal from the anxieties that were out there a week ago. I know there are a lot of people who are unhappy with the way the election has gone, but it will be be interesting to see just how this new administration fits in, and we'll know more and more as we start to see appointments made in the next few weeks here.
Well, one of Trump's billionaire buddies who was at his celebration party left halfway through to go and make $1 billion in new investments in things he thought Trump would be useful in, such as materials that could be used for infrastructure.
Oh, right. Now, and the sector's been doing well already. Just take a look at what's been happening to base metal prices, linked the zinc, lead, and copper. And copper since the election. I mean, we were 2 weeks ago we were at 210. We got to 270 this week, but tacked on a good 15 cents just after the election. So there was that feeling that regardless of who won the election, we were going to see a good move in infrastructure. So I think the other things that were significant that night was that you had that panic move into gold, and gold traded up just shy of 1340 for a brief period overnight. And then as things reversed and became calmer, gold ended up trading down. And we've closed the week at one of the worst levels of the year, down to 1226. And We've talked about the 8-year cycle and how that one typically will show a bottom in September or October. If the rally fails off of there, which it now looks clearly this one has, then prices tend to move down into a January-February period. And if we look back to those 8-year cycle lows, most of them occur in January-February. So that's what I'm looking at as we move through the end of this year. Some of the mining stocks, which had been way overbought in the summer, are starting to get down to some pretty attractive levels. And we'll have reports out for Bob Hoy's clients and also mine over the weekend regarding a lot of these markets.
What's the long-term outlook for gold? Still good?
Well, I think the long term is still good as long as we can hold the levels we put in down there at that 1140 level. But it's, this market's going to have to go down, prove itself, and there's various ways in which you can be looking for bottoms in here, but we'll deal with them as we get there. One of the things that's been hurting gold this last number of months has been the increase in interest rates. And we got the sell signal on the bond market back on July the 8th, and we're now seeing just the opposite. We're starting to see that yields, which have gone from a 135 on the 10-year bond in the U.S. in the summer, they're up at 210 as of the end of this week. That's a dramatic move, 55% increase in rates. And now everybody's starting to talk about possible inflation and higher rates. In reality, from a technical perspective, it looks as though we've got maybe 90% of the move behind us right now, and we'll be looking for rates to top out in here over the next week or 10 days and possibly roll back down a bit.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Well, we'll see what next week has to bring, and it'd be a hard time living up to what this one was.
My guest has been Ross Clark, investment advisor at CIBC Wood Gundy, Vancouver. Coming up, Trends Journal publisher Gerald Celente next on This Week in Money.
Always consult your investment professional before making any investment decision.
GEM International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the 4th largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. GEM International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
My guest is Gerald Celente. He's the publisher of the Trends Journal, available online at trendsjournal.com. He's speaking to us from historic Kingston, New York. Gerald, it's great to have you back on This Week in Money.
Well, thank you very much. Always great being on with you, Jim.
Gerald, first of all, congratulations on your prediction a few months ago that Donald Trump would be the president.
Yes, actually, in our Spring Trends Journal, we first forecast it, and then we re-upped it again in the Summer Trends Journal when I was on the air with you. So, as we said, there's never been an election like this in the United States where two of the candidates are so unpopular. 60% negative ratings on both of them, and even the exit polls showed the same thing. So, the people are just fed up with the entire system, so they look for somebody new. And it's an election like we've never seen before, and it really has less to do with the messenger and more to do with the message. And the message is that you have 95% of the wealth that was created since 2009 in the U.S. has gone to the 1%. That's a fact. And the other fact is that you have 50% of the people in the U.S. earning under $30,000 a year. So there used to be a campaign slogan in the old Bill Clinton, when he was running for office. It said, "It's the economy, stupid." That's going back to 1992. And that's what this is about. It's the economy, stupid.
The big question many are wondering about is, how did they get the polling so wrong?
It's very simple. You know, the CEO of Trends Research, his name is Derek Osinenko. And Derek was the editor-in-chief of Gannett News Service. It's a huge corporation. And he said to me, I always had great trust in the pollsters. He said, I know these guys for years. He was with them for many, many years. They're always doing polling. He said, but the whole database has changed now. It's very hard to get the kind of data that you need to do polling in a world of handhelds and cell phones. So you don't have that connection you once had to find the proper demographic and psychographic to do the polling from. That's the real problem.
Is there any way to solve that?
Not now, because it's so diverse, it's so loose. People don't have they don't have landlines anymore, so you're losing the demographic connection, and that's what's really hurting it. And psychographics, because they used to do a lot of background on who they were polling and why, and it was quite accurate for a lot of years. It was every now and then there'd be a blip, but again, you can't find a solid database to work from anymore.
Is this a black eye for the mainstream media, and are they a good investment these days?
Mainstream media is disgusting, and I call them prostitutes. We do Trends in the News as part of the Trends Journal subscription, and I would go night after night reading headlines and front pages from the New York Times, who call themselves the paper of record. More aptly, it should be the toilet paper of record, because that's all the paper is good for. And what I would do is I'd read the headlines and then show the photos. Day after day, there would be a negative story about Donald Trump. Nothing negative, if ever, about Hillary Clinton. She was Saint Hillary in their eyes. And then you look at the data again, and just on quantitative analyses. Look at all the papers around the country that supported Clinton in the editorials. Look at the amount of time given negative Trump news versus negative Clinton news. You know who won this election for America? It was a foreign correspondent. His name was Julian Assange with the WikiLeaks. That's what really lost the election for Clinton in a big part, besides the disgust so many people have for the Clintons. We've had enough of them. But that's who really won the election. That's where the news isn't really being forwarded to. And also, this is who else lost the election when you asked me the question about mainstream media. Look at the other elements of the mainstream that supported Hillary Clinton. Let's start with Hollywood. And all those Katzenbacks and Spielbergs, all those De Niros and Clooneys, all of those one after another so-called actors and actresses. Obama made 42 trips to Hollywood as President of the United States, and in the last few months going there for $100,000 a plate fundraisers for Hillary Clinton. And it didn't work. And the other losers of the mainstream. Who is the biggest mainstream in these days of a digital world? Silicon Valley. Yep, the Silicon con men. The Googles, the Zuckerbergs. One after another. Down to Mark Cuban, or another one. A big guy on CNBC. His name's always out there. All pro-Clinton. They all lost. It was a Hollywood billion-dollar flop. So this is very big because it ties into your question. The mainstream is no stream. It's dried up, and people are tired of it, just as they are of the elites in Germany, in France. Look, you know what Hollande's popularity rating is right now? 4%. South Korea, Park. Oh, they have a woman there. Made a big difference. Yeah, her rating's down to 5%. South Africa, Zuma. One revolution after another against the established systems. But what Trump is a pop populist. He's not the real deal. And again, he won because of the dislike for Clinton, and that's what we said to you, a long time ago.
Well, in The Middle East, we saw the Arab Spring. Is Donald Trump the American Spring?
No, what he's going to do, actually, as we see it, he's going to galvanize the left, who have been silent under the, the left left their courage behind supporting war criminal and con commander-in-chief Obama. You know, we're about 15 minutes away from Woodstock, New York, the home of the quiche-eating liberals with their balsamic smiles. And every time we point out to them the war crimes that Obama was committing by invading Libya, by going into Syria, lying his way back into Iraq, troop surge in Afghanistan, killed over 4,000 people according to human rights organizations with drone strikes. Innocent people. And you know what they would say? Well, he's better than Bush. Oh yeah, didn't murder as many, huh? So what we're saying is, because of their dislike for Trump, and the cowards that they were that wouldn't call their commander out, now the left is going to mobilize against the Trump regime. And already we're seeing from the reports coming out, it's going to be back to the Bush days. They're already talking about him bringing in Jamie Dimon from Morgan Stanley to be the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Oh yeah, the Goldman Sachs gang wasn't good enough when they brought in, what's his name over there? Henry Paulson, who gave us Too Big to Fail. And the clown they got in there now, Lou, from Citigroup. So it's more of the same. So what you're going to see, what Trump is going to do, the country is going to be divided. So the left is going to be fighting against it. And if they fight against issues that are for morality and the human spirit, then it will be a good thing.
Would Bernie Sanders have beaten Donald Trump?
Not necessarily, because his platform was very thin. He may have, but again, he was just a fraud as well. I'm going to give you free education. I'm going to give you free health care. I voted against the Iraq War. Yeah, you voted against the Iraq War, but you voted to fund every Iraq war. You voted to fund the Afghan war. You supported Bill Clinton's murderous regime when he killed over 500,000 people because of sanctions in Iraq. And Madeleine Albright on CBS with Leslie Stahl saying, yes, the death of 500,000 people was worth it. So he was a fraud, too. He co-sponsored the resolution for Gaddafi to stand down in Libya in a no-fly zone and supported Obama's wars in Syria as well. You know, he's just another fraud. You know, look, I used to see guys like him when I was a kid going to Coney Island in Brooklyn. You buy 2 knishes, you get one free. You know, save your act, Jack. You know, so he was going nowhere, too. But the young people loved him because he was promising them something more that they didn't have. And you have a young population in the United States, graduates out of college, with $1.3 trillion worth of debt. Isn't that a nice way to start your life off? So Bernie was throwing out the populist lines, but he didn't really have anything to back it up. I think in a showdown, he would have lost.
America is deeply divided. Is continued civil unrest likely?
Well, as I said, yes, you're already seeing it. Look at the beginning. I've been around for a long time, and I've never seen someone win an election and protests begin so early. So yes, there is, but again, it may come out for the positive. As well, an opportunity for a new third party. A new one as opposed to the Bloods and the Crips that are running the show now, the Republicans and the Democrats, the murderers and thieves that start wars against innocent people, slaughter millions, and steal our money in the names of Too Big to Fail. The Republican Party, Trump showed there isn't any. He went in there and took it over. So you're going to start seeing the conservative movement is dead. You're going to see a true populist movement possibly evolve, one that more mirrors something like the AFD party in Germany, the Alternative for Deutschland, the Five-Star movement in Italy. Look what they did in Italy. They put a woman, 37 years old, Virginia Reaugh, as mayor of Rome, and another woman as mayor of Torino. So you can see that kind of positive change happening because it's going, as I said, it'll galvanize the left who are the biggest hypocrites because they wouldn't call out their murderer-in-chief, but they'll call out others. So in issues of the environment, in issues of war, in issues of giving the big more breaks that the Democrats did to the upper class, now they'll come out and fight it. So I don't know if the revolution will be a violent one, but it could be a positive one.
Are globalization and the New World Order facing a trend change, and what does this mean for investors?
I think you're going to see one of the planks that Trump really nailed down was his anti-globalization trend. And that, by the way, is global as well. And so if he starts putting up trade barriers against China and Mexico, and of course the Trans-Pacific Partnership now is all but dead, you're going to start seeing some repercussions on it, but I don't think it's going to have a negative effect. I think in the long run, if implemented properly, it would have a positive effect. Because one of our top trends for 2016 was self-sustaining economies. We're a nation of 320 million people. The only reason we're not making our shirts, shoes, and computers is because of the trade deals. So that brings jobs back to the country, and jobs that pay working wages rather than slave wages, as being, working at a checkout counter or working for one of the multinationals and, packaging packages for Amazon. So it can have a positive effect for all nations. Look what happened in Russia with the sanctions. They became more self-sustaining. It was a positive.
Donald Trump said he's in favor of the Keystone XL pipelines. Is that good news for Canada?
I don't know, because you have an oversupply of product already, and it may be a good thing for them, and not for Canada so much, but more for the investors, because there's still a glut of oil on the market, and it's not going to go away. As a matter of fact, it's going to get much worse as we see more and more alternative energies move in, whether it's sun, geothermal, biofuel, wind, and new ones yet to be invented. And again, that's going to come up to a lot of resistance, and you just made the perfect point. He's in favor of that. Now you're going to start seeing the left mobilize against it. So that's what I'm trying to say. There's going to be a check and balance that we haven't had before.
Who do you think could lead a new left side in the U.S.?
There's nobody out there right now that I really see that's in the media. And a left is as dead as the right. All of that positioning for belief in a very closely defined system really holds very little credibility in the long run. So it has to be something more of when I say populist, more of an open thinking kind of party. And even the word party doesn't work. More of a movement. And so right now there's nobody out in the limelight that I see. The closest one that would have been to it was Ron Paul, but unfortunately he's a bit too old to launch it, and he's a friend of mine, and I admire him deeply. Yeah, but I just don't think that he's the person right now for that. We need some different younger blood and a different message, because the old one, as we just saw with Trump taking over the Republican Party, showed there's no one there. Look at their names and faces. Mitch McConnell from Kentucky. I mean, come on. What do you got? This Lindsey Graham, John Insane McCain, Paul Ryan. What was Paul Ryan playing? Eddie Munster before he became a congressman? I mean, these guys are nobodies. And that's what everybody should understand. It's the Wizard of Oz. And now it's the reality show champion, Donald Trump. A reality show champion won the presidential reality show. And we said it would happen, and it did.
Is that what impresses people the most in the U.S.? You're famous on television?
Yeah. It's why would anybody watch the Kardashians? I mean, my God. Myra Siley, whatever her name is.
Smiley Virus, as I like to call her.
What do you call her?
Smiley Virus.
There you go. And, I mean, why? I mean, who could have... And that's the other thing. You know who else lost? Are these rappers with their bad attitude. And by the way, a lot of this rap is racist against white people as well. And I've had enough of it. Because when I hear Michelle Obama coming out about hearing the vile language of Donald Trump, And then I look at the language as I did when I pulled up the lyrics and the people that they've invited into the White House. What hypocrisy. What disgusting language shooting out of their mouth from Beyonce to Jay-Z and all of the rest. That's who else lost. Could you imagine Frank Sinatra standing next to JFK comparing Jay-Z and Beyonce next to Hillary Clinton? So that's who really lost.
We'll have more with Gerald Celente next on This Week in Money.
I'm Larry Reaugh, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, AMY, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Reaugh, at 778-574-4444.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Money. I'm Jim Goddard. We're speaking with Gerald Celente. He's the editor and publisher of TrendsJournal.com. Gerald, what is the election of Donald Trump going to do to gold and silver?
You know, initially, the markets were wrong on this. They thought Donald Trump was going to be positive for gold and silver, and the reverse has seemed to happen. They also, you remember what happened on election eve. You saw the Dow futures dive over 800 points. And then they put the plunge protection team came in there and stopped it. So they're looking at Trump now being very pro-business. And they're also looking at him again in a very different light overnight. But here's what we think is going to happen. We're going to start seeing more inflation starting to move into the system, particularly if he says what he said he's going to do, and that's spend $1 trillion to build the infrastructure in a nation that's already $20 trillion in debt. So I think actually my gut feeling is in the short term, the Trump administration is going to be bearish for gold. There's also questions of whether or not the Federal Reserve is going to raise interest rates in December. And now with Trump in, the odds have changed from being 70% of the people believing that they were going to raise them. Now it's down to 50%. If they don't raise interest rates, that will be positive for gold. So it's up in the air now. We're getting a mixed message from it because again, you go back to election eve, you saw gold spike over $50 an ounce. And then then the next day it retreated back, to where it was. And it's been trending a bit lower. So I think on the short term, this is up in the air, and I think it's a bit negative on the forecast for rising gold prices.
Your thoughts on the U.S. dollar short and long term?
The U.S. dollar is going, again, it goes back to whether or not they raise interest rates. And here's the big problem, Jim. Look what's going on against the Chinese yuan. It's at a 6-year low against the dollar. And they can't afford to have the yuan go lower because of their capital outflows, which at $70 billion last month. So China's spent also over $50 billion trying to shore it up over the last month. If they raise interest rates, all of the emerging market currencies get weaker because the dollar gets stronger. They have huge debt problems. They have to pay it back in dollars. Take the Chinese debt. It went from $500 billion, according to David Stockman, some 20 years ago, to over $30 trillion today. And a lot of this is based in dollars. And then go around the world. Brazil, look at all the unrest going on in places where they have, there's so much debt load that they borrowed in dollars. So if they raise interest rates, the value of the dollar goes up. The stronger the dollar goes, the weaker their currencies. The weaker their currencies, the more they have to pay back in the debt load that they have. So that's where it really stands. It's very hard to tell. A lot of this weighs on the Federal Reserve. And by the way, to us, in our analysis, that is the major reason why the Federal Reserve has not raised interest rates. In fear of a global economic collapse from the dollar getting stronger and the other currencies getting much weaker. So the reason the dollar is strong is only because the other currencies are so weak.
Should we have just one global currency?
I don't know. I don't think so. I'm all in favor of every nation having their own. This way we don't have that globalization master ruling everybody. So, let everybody do their own. I won't tell you how to run your house. Don't tell me how to run mine. And I'm all in favor of each nation having their own currency.
Are the Dow and S&P 500 in a bullish trend?
Right now, I believe they are for the short term. And again, and this is totally opposite of what Wall Street had predicted going into the elections. Just look at the data. Every time Hillary Clinton was in the lead, the S&P would spike. When Trump was in the lead, it would go down. Again, go back down to election eve, when the Dow was down over 800 points, the Dow futures. So, and then now it's a sharp reversal, and you could already see it by the kind of people that Trump is attracting to bring into the White House. He's bringing in Wall Street. So it's going to be more of the same and possibly much worse.
Are auto sales the canary in the coal mine for the American economy?
Up to an extent they are, but not to get too overly identified to it, because what they really did was they made, just as you had all of these no-income verification loans that created the housing crisis, the same thing with the auto loans. You need an auto loan. You want to buy a car. You don't have a job. You have nowhere to live. Don't worry. Come over and see me. I'll sign over here. You'll get your car. So yeah, they did that, but the numbers are a lot less than it was during the housing crisis. I don't think it's the canary in the economic coal mine. I think more to the line of copper prices. And take a look at them. They've only gone up 4% this year, while a lot of commodities have rebounded. And copper is really that canary natural resource, because the more industrialization is going on, the more copper being used up. And right now it's pretty flat. And then again, look at the United States. Look at our import-export for the first, I think it's 9 months of this year. We're down almost $500 billion. And global trade on the whole is down about 0.4%. So to me, those are the things to look at.
Is protectionism now a global trend, and how will it affect financial markets?
I think globalization is on the downtrend. Protectionism is on the uptrend, and I think it could have a positive effect for a lot of nations to make more of their own rather than exporting their money and bringing it to multinationals. So I think if implemented properly for nations that could do it, that have the human and natural resources, it's a positive. Because all that's happened with globalization is that the multinationals have controlled so much of what used to be mom and pop businesses and small businesses. So with the protectionism, it brings the business back home. So I think it's a positive, and it's also, if it's protectionism in the sense of non-intervention into foreign entanglements, that's even better yet.
Elon Musk has introduced solar roof tiles with battery storage. What does this do to the solar trend?
Well, that's what I was saying before when you asked me about the Keystone Pipeline.
Mm-hmm. You're
going to see more and more advantages and new developments in alternative energies. And the more and more people get off the grid, the less and less oil that's going to be needed and fossil fuels. So it'll hurt everyone. No, it's a positive as I see it, in the sense of the less fossil fuels that could be burned, and the more people could be off the grid and on their own. I don't want to pay my bills to an energy company. I'd rather, do it on my own. And again, this is just the beginning. We're in the early stages of, as we see it, the energy revolution. And we write about it, a lot about it, in our Trends Journal, identifying things that go far beyond solar, geothermal, and biofuels.
What are some of those things?
Well, you're going to start seeing more things, that even if it's zero-point energy coming out at some place, or areas in that as well. So we're going to be doing a big story on it on the Winter Trends Journal, and that'll be out, of course, in January. But we're putting together a lot of some real breaking information that's going to have very positive effects.
Is virtual reality a trend or a fad?
Oh, it's a big trend. it's just the beginning. Right now it's only in the game world. Wait till it starts going virtual education. Just think about it. The education system was built for the industrial age. The industrial age is dead. And so now kids could go to school, from their home. They'll be in a virtual schoolroom. And you'll also be taught differently with courseware geared to who you are, what you could do and how you could learn and at what speed. No, this is a huge breakthrough. It's just the beginning.
Do you think Trump will have any success eliminating government corruption?
I think when he's been, I don't know. I doubt it. I'm ready to see what'll happen. But, his track record of who he is and his business dealings in the past, aren't a very shining light. And just to make it clear, I'm not the same guy I used to be when I was a younger guy. Maybe he's grown up and has gotten some more morality and has learned from life. But when you look at what he's done to so many contractors that he shafted out of money, and their last payments, and how he brags about gaming the system, what do you call corruption? Is corruption when you could game the system legally, or is that okay? So unless he evolves to a higher level, I don't know. I can't look inside his mind. But again, I make it very clear, I'm not the same guy I used to be. I used to be the chief government affairs specialist for a major section of the chemical industry, in my younger days, and I wouldn't do that now. So anyway, maybe we're the same age, Trump and I, but maybe he'll grow up or has grown up.
If Trump spends money rebuilding America, will it be bullish for miners?
I don't think so. I think it'll be bullish for the construction industry, and the amount that they'll use. I really don't think so. I don't think it'll have that big an effect. It'll have an effect on some of the local companies. Yes, absolutely.
With trade agreements in limbo, are markets and commodities likely to be more volatile?
I think we're going to go through a period of very high volatility. And by the way, not that I want to say this in something that, I don't want it, God forbid it happens, but Dr. Paul Craig Roberts, who is one of our contributors and former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan, and I share the same sentiment, and I've said this before. This guy's going to be an assassination target. And particularly when Trump, when you see what's already happened at the first night after he won the election, and the amount of violence that took place in the protests. So it's going to be a split nation. And I was mentioning also to our colleagues, I would hate to be his children, because their whole life has changed. From being, New Yorkers that could go anywhere they want, they can't walk anywhere in New York without, security around them anymore. So their whole lives have changed.
Will whistleblowers trend from being criminals to being heroes?
It depends on Trump. Look what they've done under Obama. Again, the hypocritical liberals. Obama put more whistleblowers in jail than all the presidents before him combined. So, what do I think, what's his name, Trump should do is he should give Julian Assange a free ride for helping him win the election, because if it wasn't for Assange, you remember, we only looked at one person's emails through WikiLeaks rather, and that was Podesta. Could you imagine if we looked into all of these operations, the things that they're going on behind the scenes that we don't know about?
Well, here in BC, the Freedom of Information Commissioner has chastised the Premier for destroying all of her emails, and she said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know it was protocol to keep them." Yeah,
what a disgusting. How disgusting. You see, it's a neo-feudal society. There are different rules for the political nobility and the economic elite than us, we the little people. We go over the yellow line, the cops are on our tail, pull over. Where'd you come from? Do you have anything to drink? Yeah, I had a glass of wine. Get out of the car. Yeah. Put your hands on the roof. That's for us. But the big criminals get away with murder. Whether it's starting wars based on lies, stealing our money in the name of too big to fail and tax breaks and loan guarantees, or sleazy prime ministers, presidents, and chancellors around the world that do dirty deals and get a free ride. So what you said, what's going on where you are, it's the same story everywhere. the higher-ups get a free ride in the neo-feudal society. Well, we, the people of Slavelandia, have to live to the letter of the law.
Are interest rates likely to go higher?
Again, it's what I said before. It's a toss-up, because if they go higher, you're going to start seeing a crisis hitting the countries that are deeply indebted with loans based in dollars, because their currencies will get weaker. So at some point they're going to have to go up. And this might be a time they will do it in a transition period from Obama to Trump.
Are we going to see tax cuts worldwide?
No. The only tax cuts they'll give are for their buddies at the top. The rest of us, what they'll do is if they give us a tax break on a federal loan, they'll nail us with a VAT tax or something else to squeeze the money out of us. Property taxes, anything that they can do.
What's the worldwide trend for real estate?
Right now, I believe it's still, just as you see it. The only way it's going to go down is when when it finally does, the debt bubble finally does burst. So we think right now it's near its top. And when you go, for example, here in New York, the rents are going down a bit. Condo sales have fallen back about 20%. You go back to take places like Houston and other oil-rich places, where you have a drought in oil production compared to what it used to be. You're seeing, a scramble for filling empty office spaces, et cetera. So I would say, from where we sit, the real estate market is peaked.
Will the military-industrial complex be kept happy rebuilding the American military instead of using it?
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to get into the minds of psychopaths. So the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about when his farewell address has indeed taken over the nation, and Trump has promised to build it bigger. So I think if they build it bigger, they'll be happy.
Mexico has legalized marijuana. California just legalized it with the vote. Are we likely to see pot legalization throughout Canada and the U.S. soon?
Oh, yeah. It's not only California. The voters in Maine and Massachusetts approved a ballot measures legalizing marijuana across the board. And in Florida and North Dakota, they legalized marijuana for medical use. Oh, this is just the beginning. And you're going to see a lot of medical marijuana developments as well. These are going to be big stocks to look at. They're not going away. And this is, we're saying, this is just the start of it. And it just barely lost in Arizona, by the way. So we're going to start seeing more. And again, to me, it should not be legalized. It should be decriminalized. Who is government to say who should plant the seed and not? The only reason they're legalizing it is so they can make money off it with taxes. The hypocrisy of these people. So anyway, you're going to see more legalization because it goes back to what you were asking me. Are they going to lower taxes? They need the money. They're going to get it any way they can. And just like they made lotto, when I was a kid in the Bronx, people used to play the numbers. They used to break the vegetable man for you. We used to come around in his truck, and the older folks used to play the numbers. Oh, they're hurting the people that can afford it the least. Yeah, but when the state got into it and called it lotto and, Mega Millions, then it was okay because they're getting tax money from it. So they're going to see a huge legalization trend because they need the tax dough.
Will Trump be a president for the people or for the establishment?
We'll have to see. I think my honest opinion, he'll be a president for himself. I find him very narcissistic, self-centered, and when you listen to his language, nobody treats women better than me. Nobody knows this better than me. Nobody knows. Don't talk to me like that. But that's what he talks. I'm the best.
Have you ever met the Donald?
No, I haven't. I know people very connected to him. And I have no interest in meeting him either, by the way.
What will Obama's legacy be?
Well, they'll pump it up to something that it isn't. Obama lied his way into office, and he's lying his way out. He came in as the anti-war president, won the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize. It put 33,000 more troops into Afghanistan, started the Libyan war, killed over 30,000 people over there. We're under Obama, it's been a constant state of war. We're in Sudan, we're in Pakistan, we're in Yemen, we're in Iraq. Oh, look what he did in the overthrow of the democratically elected government in Ukraine. He lied about how he was going to get the government out of our backs and stop spying on us, and he increased it by tenfold. I mentioned the whistleblowers that he put in jail when he promised as a candidate that he'd be more lenient and wanted to hear what whistleblowers would have to say. Now more of them have been convicted under Obama than all the other presidents combined. Hey, folks, first day in office, I'm going to close Guantanamo. Remember that one? Yeah, by the end of the year. I guess he can't count too well. But, they'll distort his legacy. And who cares about a legacy? Because when you die, it's only about yourself. Who cares what anybody else thinks? So he's just another little sociopath and an arrogant guy like the rest of them, the Bushes, the Clintons, and all the ones most of the ones that preceded him. So I see a legacy of lies as I see it, and only saying that by the data and the facts.
Gerald, you've been ahead of the curve so often, so many times. How can people find out more about the Trends Journal?
Oh, go to trendsresearch.com, trendsresearch.com. And for the people that can't afford the full price, and it's only $99 a year, and you get the Trends Journal, Trend Alert each week, Trends Monthly, and Trends in the News each weekday night. There's a discount request page. And again, we say it very clearly, this is the only magazine and source where you're going to find history before it happens.
Gerald, thank you so much for being on This Week in Money.
Thank you, Jim, and all the best. Keep up the great work.
My guest has been Gerald Celente, editor and publisher of TrendsJournal.com. Coming up, Peyton Nyquist next on This Week in Money.
GEM International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond-producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International spotlight is on an 1109-carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. GEM International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
This Week in Money is archived online at talkdigitalnetwork.com.
Welcome back to This Week in Money. My guest is Peyton Nyquist. He's a Vancouver investment advisor at MackeyResearch.com. Welcome back to the show, Peyton.
Thanks for having me.
How did our Canadian equity markets handle the Donald Trump election this week?
The TSX had a high of 14,841. Low was around 14,47, closing at 14,554, down about 46 points. The TSX Venture had a high of 761. Low was 724, closing at 727, down 34 points for the week. And the CSE had a high of 792. Low was 761, closing at 785, up 18 points for the week.
What were the big drivers?
The golds were pretty active this week. Closing, gold was off $40, was as high as $1,300 midweek. So a lot of volatility there. On the CSE side of things, the marijuana markets continue to be very interesting. California actually came out with their legalization legislation this week as well, on the same day as actually the U.S. election. So,
is there a lot of potential for Canadian companies involved in marijuana to get involved in California?
I think there is. I think more so than that, California is obviously a big hurdle down there. It's a huge marijuana market, and I think just the more states that you see start to open up down there, the more people are positive on the fact that Canada will go legal as well.
Well, if you look at the size of the California market, 38 million people opposed to 36 million in Canada. They're a country all by themselves.
Well, exactly. So I think it opens up a lot of doors, definitely for Canadians to go down there and Canadian companies to go down there and do business, but definitely more so pushing legalization in Canada.
People still very positive about gold investment in the long term?
I think so. I think a lot of people were thinking that if Donald Trump got in, that there would be a lot more gold upside immediately after, which there obviously hasn't been. But I think long term, people are still looking at gold as one of the places to be.
So still, I guess, good positive messages coming from the Canadian junior miners?
Yeah, the miners are continuing to hang in there. There's a lot of, I think what'll be interesting in the venture market over the next couple of weeks is there is a ton of financings that were done in the summertime and early summer when things were very hot that are all kind of coming free trading between now and Christmas. So I think there's a lot of people that are probably going to be taking some profits there. And so there might be a lot of pressure on the venture market here for the next couple of weeks. Whether that happens or what the impact of that is.
Peyton, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Thanks for having me.
My guest has been Peyton Nyquist, a Vancouver investment advisor at MackeyResearch.com. That's the end of our show. Coming up after our show, we'll have Company Showcase with Larry Reaugh. We'd like to thank our guests, Ross Clark, Gerald Celente, and Peyton Nyquist. If you have any questions for the show, you can email us at info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. We'll be back next week with more This Week in Money.
Comments made on This Week in Money are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. This Week in Money is a production of Howe Street Media Incorporated. Executive producer is Tom Allen. Welcome to Company Showcase, an advertising feature on HoweStreet.com.
I'm Jim Goddard. We're chatting with Larry Reaugh, President and CEO of American Manganese. Welcome back, Larry.
Well, thanks, Jim. It's been an exciting day for me.
I understand you have something new for us in your news release that came out around November 10th.
Yes, we do, and it certainly caught the attention out there of the market. We've traded within all the markets, including the various platforms, about 23 million shares today, which is a record for us, which is almost double our record, right? And the price moved up almost 50%, and so it's an exciting day in here. And I have to tell you, that our proof of concept, that's the release that went out, has now been successfully completed. And so the market loved that news, and they ate it up. And you can tell by the action in the market, I think we were the biggest trader by far today on the venture exchange. But I'd just like to point out a few things. Ever since we started this recycling program, we've traded roughly 205 million shares in just slightly over 3 months. So that's been a busy time for us, and it tells you that we have a lot of flippers in the market, of course, because the stock has actually moved in the last 6 months from about 1.5 cents up to 26.5 today. But at that time of volume, you'd think the price would be higher, but we do have flippers and predators in the market, and they account for a lot of the volatility. So, we're getting there. We're moving up. I can see that we're getting a different type of investor in now, more to do with the green technology sector than perhaps, as you see, the mining sector. And a lot of these people will take positions and will hold them because they can see value. And it's a real transition period for the company. And we're to say that
the phones haven't been ringing here today would be an understatement. Now, as we move along the way here, we've got other events that are going to be coming up, and we will be announcing a program, which I don't want to go into any detail on right now, that's going to cost, roughly about $1 million over the next year, and I'll elaborate on that in the upcoming release. But I don't want to, talk about things that could be considered releasable or material events, and so it's going to be a busy time for the company. We are getting interest from different groups and everything else that are interested in our technology. As you know, in our last press release, we talked about presenting at the NatBat, which is a very prestigious conference in Ann Arbor. And there will be a lot of companies there that will be interested in certainly in our project, because recycling is a big part of the NatBat Association, and especially lithium-ion batteries. So we're looking forward to that on November the 30th. When we go down there, we'll be taking the Cometco group, at least the president and chief operating officer, who's a battery expert, and they will actually make the presentation, and because it's going to be, talking to a lot of their peers down there. So I'm looking forward to that, and I got other things that are coming up that, may be able to be talked about next week. So I can't talk about them now, but it's an interesting program that we've got going here, and it's certainly exceeded my wildest expectations on the turnaround that we saw in the market, and we've flipped well over 1.5 times our entire float now, and it's that brings a lot of attention to the company. A lot of it is unwanted attention, but a lot of it is good attention as we gradually move from weaker hands to stronger hands in the market. And I can see that developing. There's going to have a totally different looking shareholder base, except for a lot of our very loyal shareholders that have been with the company for a long time. But for a lot of the recent shareholders who are in profits, they may be gone now, but they're being replaced by a different type of shareholder. So it's an interesting time for the company, and it's a great transition.
Larry, Forbes is reporting Chinese electric car sales are up 162% in the first half of the year. How does that relate to American Manganese?
All that's great news for American Manganese, especially if you're talking about lithium-ion EV cars. And at least half of those would be lithium-ion EV cars, and that's going to mean a lot more spent batteries coming out. They're talking about millions of spent batteries in 2025. Certainly could be close to 1 million by 2020. That's a staggering amount of batteries to recycle, and you can't just keep burning them in a smelter and losing most of the metal. The only thing you get back in a smelter is some of the cobalt, and and that's the other thing I've read about people talking about recycling. They keep talking about only the lithium component of it. They for some reason ignore the fact that there's about $1,200 or $1,500 worth of cobalt in a Tesla S battery, and then you've got nickel, which is been moving up nicely lately, which has an extra great value on it, and for the aluminum and manganese that's involved, which should be somewhere similar to the cobalt in a nickel. Say, for example, a nickel manganese cobalt battery, then you get some great values out there aside from the lithium. And we want to capitalize on that. We want to end up with a process that where we can reclaim up to 100% of the material, the cathode material. And the more EV cars that are built, the more that are going to reach the end of life sometime in the future. And as you know, it's these things are not just a spin on a dime to get a recycling plant or any other kind of plant up and running. There's still lots of test work to be done, and fine tuning, and eventually pilot plant testing, and commercially, producing some commercial product. And, I think our timing could be just perfect for entering the field.
Larry, thanks for this update on November 10th.
Okay, thanks, Jim, and appreciate the chance to talk about the company.
We've been chatting with Larry Reaugh, President and CEO of American Manganese. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on Company Showcase are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any manner whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Archived online at HowStreet.com. Company Showcase is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.